It's not the first time we've heard something like this, but we have another story, this time from Sky News over in the UK. NHS, the National Health Service, I think it's called. I'm not British, forgive me. Staff can refuse to treat racist or sexist patients under new rules. The NHS will soon bar discriminatory patients from non-critical care, powers that currently only cover aggression or violence. There are a lot of reasons to reject Medicare for All. Medicare for All, from Bernie Sanders and, I don't know, whoever else is proposing it, would abolish private health care. Naturally, unions are upset over this, do not want this. Most Americans like their private health care, but here's the best part. You don't have a government telling you what you can or can't say. And to a certain degree, in the United States, doctors can refuse you based on these criteria. But why would you want to centralize all of that power within the government and then have government employees determine whether or not you can or can't be saying certain things? Look, man, there might be a circumstance where someone suffered a stroke or they're drunk or they're, just not all there and they say something. And then what? A doctor's going to be like, I'm not treating this person who's in dire need because they said naughty words. I'll read the story. But while it is fair to say they shouldn't do this, doctors should treat someone even if they don't like them. You can, as a doctor, be like, this person is aggressive and they're causing problems. I don't want them in my hospital. That's going to happen. Maybe they'll sedate you. I don't know. I personally think if you're a medical professional, in my opinion, you should do your best to try and save lives, no matter how awful the person might be. I mean, you see it in war, too. Like, even if it's an enemy combatant, you still try to have them survive. And there's obviously logistical and strategic reasons for that. Maybe you want information, but we as human beings typically try to help each other, even when it comes to the most extreme circumstances, like in war. If we don't have to, hurt somebody, we'll try and help them. Not always. Okay, let's be honest. But this to me is nuts because you're talking about your own citizens. You're talking about people in your community who might have a bad opinion. So you're going to reject them from non-critical care. So I'll be fair. I don't think they're talking about someone bleeding out. But that's still kind of absurd that you can be like, I know you're a bigot, out of the hospital. And then where do you go? Because it's the NHS. You just go to a different hospital. Let's read. Sky reports. Currently, staff can refuse to treat non-critical patients who are verbally aggressive or physically violent towards them. And that one makes sense. But these protections will extend to any harassment, bullying, or discrimination, including homophobic, sexist, or racist remarks. Health Secretary Matt Hancock wrote to all NHS staff on Tuesday to announce stronger measures to investigate abuse and harassment towards staff, saying, no act of violence or abuse is minor. Being assaulted or abused is not part of the job. Far too often, I hear stories the people you are trying to help lash out. I've seen it for myself in A&Es, on night shifts, and on ambulances. Mr. Hancock said he was horrified that any member of the public would abuse or physically assault a member of our NHS staff, but it happens too often. Full stop right there, man. There is a big difference between someone attacking you and someone saying naughty words. But hold on. All right, I'm going to say it. We're entering a world where the left thinks words are violence. And there you go. They will say they were violent towards me. The average person will assume physical violence, but they're changing the definition because they're slimy manipulators that know it's easier to change the word than change the law. You will never, in the United States, actually strip away certain rights. Like, okay, that was probably a vague statement. There are certain rights that will never be taken away. What they do then is they change the definition of the word, say it over and over again, get their allies in media to say it, until eventually the law itself was changed because the interpretation of the words have changed. That's maybe not intentional, but it's what's going to happen. Let's read more. Mr. Hancock outlined a new joint agreement with police and the Crown Prosecution Service, which will give police more powers to investigate and prosecute cases where NHS staff are the victim of a crime. All assault and hate crimes. Boom, there it is. Remember Count Dankula? Remember his hate crime of making a silly video with his pug? And there we have it. You might do something you think is a joke or innocuous or is not even offensive, and they'll still call it a hate crime. Maybe you'll use the wrong pronoun on accident. They'll call it a hate crime. Maybe they'll demand you do something you don't want to do, and when you don't, they say it's discrimination. And they'll say the words you used were violence. And then you won't get the important treatment you need. Now, it's going to be non-critical, so again, you probably won't die. But how absurd is this that we're taking away so much of someone's rights? So and we're changing definitions so that people can just let you suffer or not treat you. The problem here, for the most part, is in a private hospital, they could still do it. They could say, get out. And in a public facility, hospital, whatever, they could also do it. But you have multiple choices. The NHS is one system. I guess technically you could go to a different NHS hospital, I suppose, and sure. But the monopolization of power in this way is bad no matter what. But let's read on. All assault and hate crimes against NHS staff must be investigated with care, compassion, diligence, and commitment, he said. These new rules were announced with the release of the 2019 NHS staff survey for England, which showed more than a quarter of NHS workers were bullied, harassed, or abused in 1 year. 4 in 10 workers felt unwell due to work-related stresses. Oh man, I just cannot stand the snowflake generation. A whole generation of people who are dainty little delicate flowers that can't handle hearing naughty words. Dude, you can throw literally any slur or whatever you want at me. I do not care. Sticks and stones can break my bones. Apparently kids never played freeze tag or anything and never learned these silly these silly children's rhymes we did when we'd run around the neighborhood saying stupid things. Little kids, like when I grew up, I was called the worst names you could possibly imagine. You ever see South Park? Yeah, that's how life is in Chicago. And so, as we all learned, sticks and stones may break my bones. Words will never hurt me. Now we're literally at the period where they're calling it abuse and harassment and hate crimes. And they're actually going to deny you health care because you said something that they think was violence. About 1 in 7 of some 569,000 staff surveyed reported being physically attacked, up slightly on the year before. Now that, no beef. I got no problem. I don't care what you're doing. You attack somebody, boom, you're out. You want life-saving treatment, you want medical care, and you attack somebody, get out. Don't care who you are, where you come from, don't do it. Now, I do think it's fair to point out some of these are probably people who are mentally unwell, and that's why they need the care. So let's be careful in how we apply these things. There's a story I was reading the other day. Some dude suffered a stroke, and this happens all the time. And the cops grabbed him and threw him in a cell, and the dude's half paralyzed from a stroke. I saw one story. It's scary, man. A guy had a stroke while driving, and he's half paralyzed, freaking out, and his car's drifting. He gets the cops finally get his car to stop, and they think he's drunk, so they tase the guy. Are you going to then say, oh, this guy was doing something or acting a certain way, so we're not going to treat him, when it's literally the life-saving treatment he needs to get over what was causing the problem in the first place? NHS Chief Executive Sir Simon Stevens said his service was determined to clamp down on abuse and aggression in all its forms. Christina McAnia, Assistant General Secretary of Unison, said that although she welcomed Mr. Hancock's tough talk, it came many months after he promised to tackle violence. These figures show there's been no noticeable change, she said. A separate survey published by the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman found that 1 in 5 mental health patients do not feel safe in NHS care. What? More than half of people with mental health problems in England also said their treatment was delayed, while 42% said they were diagnosed too late. Do you know what this means to me? First, to wrap up the main point, and then we can carry on, I do not like the idea of monopolizing all of our health services into a single government-run organization, because then you just have no alternatives for the most part. But it says to me that they're continually criminalizing stupidity. When it comes to a lot of people who have dumb opinions, maybe they're bigots, sexist, racist, whatever, I just view them as stupid. And stupid people going to say stupid things. Does that mean you don't provide them with service or give them access or human rights? That's nuts. But think about it this way. In the United States, they say healthcare is a human right. That's Bernie Sanders. That's what he says, right? Is it a human right then if you say a naughty word? Apparently not. And that's what's so dang confusing. In the UK, they apparently don't believe that healthcare is a human right, but they do have universal healthcare. But if you say something they don't like, you lose your human right? So you don't have free speech nor the right to health access, even if you're paying it as a taxpayer. This is not the kind of system that I would want to be a part of. So you're going to have to convince working class Americans why we should embrace things like this, when more importantly, I can totally respect the idea that if you're abusive and aggressive towards a medical professional, yeah, you're going to get kicked out. But what about the interpretations they have? What if you accidentally say something? What if you make a joke and then you lose your human right? And worse still, if you're paying for it and then they kick you out. and you have nowhere else to go. So no, you're not going to convince me the system's a good thing, because the news just comes out and it keeps getting worse. And apparently people are angry they weren't doing this sooner. This is going to be funny. And I don't mean funny, haha. I mean like funny as in weird. When you have people on social media saying they were denied healthcare and they're sick and they need help because they posted a tweet 4 years ago. But that's the system that you are building. It's not the system anyone wants. I get it. You're going to find that, Bernie's people are going to be like, no, of course we don't want something like that. But if you're going to claim that healthcare is a human right, then you should come out and oppose what the NHS is doing. Of course, they probably won't. But I'll leave it there. Stick around. I got a couple more segments coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.